In my Man Boy video, I mentioned that I was thinking of doing an analysis on Franklin Saint, but it was a bit of a daunting task because, first of all, I hate Franklin. Secondly, I didn't exaggerate when I said that Franklin is extremely complex and layered, but after I spoke about it, I couldn't stop thinking about it. This script is just a little difficult to follow, but stick with me. Here we go. Franklin Saint is the main cocaine and crack kingpin in the black communities of Compton, LA, and Inglewood in the show Snowfall. At the beginning of the series, he is 20, sells weed for his uncle, just finished prep school, works at a corner store, and is college bound. His mother worked extremely hard, constantly dealing with sexual harassment and being belittled while on the job in order to raise Franklin on her own, while his father, an alcoholic and ex-Black Panther, is nowhere to be found. He's well-spoken, charismatic, and smart. All attributes that made this a profitable venture for him, especially since he was always the one pulling the strings. At the end of season 4, Franklin has recovered from being shot 3 times, has just sent his mother and father to Cuba, killed a very important business partner, we love you, man boy, and is barely hanging on to the reins of a business that is threatening to go off the rails at any moment. All of the intelligence and charisma in the world could not have prepared him for this. His character arc is an expansive one, to say the least. I'm sure this could be said of most dramatic series, but the finale of each season always acts as a huge turning point for Franklin. Not only does he progress, but his heart seems to harden immeasurably. In Rubicon, the season finale of season 1, he sees a huge opportunity in the ice cream truck that drives through his neighborhood. Not only does he get his own to sell crack out of later, but he buys everyone in the neighborhood ice cream in order to win their trust. This brings the season full circle, as the first episode included Franklin stopping kids that stole candy from the ice cream truck. He makes Ray Ray kill Lenny in this episode, which is technically Franklin's first kill of the series, and solidifies him as a cold character, foreshadowing the severity of his actions as time goes on. In Education, the finale for season 2, he goes to jail for killing Kevin, which is him facing the consequences of his actions, which honestly doesn't happen very often, in my opinion. Though going to jail was a huge step back, he also figured out Reed's CIA ties in this episode, which proved to be a huge step forward for him. Up until this point, there was always a part of Franklin that remained soft. In Other Lies, the finale for season 3, we get a glimpse into what Franklin could have been. Rather than being a pawn of the CIA, he could have been working for them in an official capacity. But even if he worked for them officially, would he just be a tool by a different name, like Reed Thompson? Would he just be used and become a simple variant of his current self? Later in the episode, he's essentially resurrected after being shot by Mel in the previous episode. This is a kind of rebirth for him, and he seems to shed any remaining sympathy that he had left. In Fight or Flight, Franklin goes to the root of his physical pain in order to heal from it. It honestly seems like he went to Mel to let her know that he knows very well where she is and that he can get to her if need be. But judging by his actions, it also seems like he was going there to fix something in himself. With the recent news that Louis, Jerome, and Leon want to separate from Franklin's business, and since his parents are in Cuba, it seems like all of his personal relationships are faltering. While we're talking about this episode, here's my theory about the cane and Franklin's miraculous healing. Franklin thought he was weak, and that weakness manifested itself physically. This is not to say that he never needed the cane, but it seems like after a while his mental weakness became a physiological weakness. Some people think he was just faking overall, but we can tell he's really hurt after he pistol whips Alton and his mom pushes him over. After losing his mother, who was his first love and biggest supporter, Tanase's betrayal, and learning that Leon, Louis, and Jerome want to leave his organization to do their own thing in one form or another, he really feels the need to assert his dominance again. And this causes him to heal, or to change physically, so that there is nothing about him that remains weak physically, mentally, or emotionally. Overall, Franklin is very controlling and seems to value his business over everything. In season 2, Franklin says that he wants to put Kevin and Leon in charge, but when Leon ran the project himself and had no need for Franklin outside of their friendship, Franklin didn't like that. When Kevin wants to do whatever is necessary to find and kill the man that murdered his cousin, Franklin drags his feet because the business is more important. That is until the end of season 4, after Leon kills Tiana and Louis and Jerome want to start their own business. Then he decides that family is important, but only when he feels that the family benefits him and or the business. Essentially, Franklin's desires are more important than anyone else's. Franklin killed Kevin, one of his best friends, in broad daylight. While I agree with a lot of other people that Kevin had to go, there were better ways to go about it. He killed Andre, his only consistent father figure, rather than doing literally anything else to defuse that situation. Louis is under the impression that they can't stop selling because of the CIA. And while this is partially true, Franklin has no desire to stop himself. He wants to build his wealth exponentially and doesn't care who he has to steamroll to do so.
We can leave, all of us, start a life somewhere else.
I didn't build all of this just to make a bunch of money and leave. Abandon our people.
You telling me this is still about our people? Have you taken a look about what's going on out there?
I have. And that's exactly why I can't leave now.
You can't control what happens, Franklin. You can't stop what's coming.
Maybe, maybe not. But what I know for sure is, if we bail, there'll be chaos. We'll leave a vacuum for sure. Gangs battling over control and territory. And an entire fucking community in ruins. Is that what you want?
In addition to being controlling, he's very selfish. Franklin didn't face a dilemma about polluting his own neighborhood and people with a drug that he knew was highly addictive. In fact, he wanted them to get as addicted as possible. He warned Mel, Leon, and Kevin not to try it, which may have started out as concern, but I feel like this was also because if they became addicted, they wouldn't be of use to him anymore. Mel is a great example of this. He could have easily arranged for everyone selling to ice out Mel, forcing her to get clean. But as soon as he saw that her addiction was more important to her than he was, he discarded her as a lost cause. Aside from giving jobs to quarter boys and buying kids ice cream, Franklin does nothing for his community until his parents step in. His mother works to provide affordable housing, a plan that falls through, and his father opens a nonprofit that also acts as a shelter, which Franklin quickly shuts down when he learns Alton is avoiding him. His inability to make positive, lasting change in the neighborhood is because it would be a paradox to do so, since he's the one making negative, lasting change. Though he does very little for the community does a great deal for him. When Irene Abbey runs the story about Mr. X, no one rats him out, even though they all know exactly who he is. Their collective silence really speaks to the power that Franklin has. He actually has to be ratted out by his own family, who he then threatens to kill. Franklin's philosophy reminds me of the biblical story of the greedy farmhands. In the story, farmhands are hired by a farmer. Instead of giving the profits to the farmer's servants, like they're ordered to, they kill the servants and the farmer's son. It is implied that the farmer kills the farmhands and then hires new farmhands that can be obedient. Franklin views his neighborhood as an endless supply of farmhands. When they no longer satisfy him or they get too greedy, he kills them off and picks out new farmhands. Let's look at this scene.
Anybody got any idea as to how that might have happened? Huh? Come on, man. Y'all weren't blasting any music? Going in and out the front door? Maybe bringing the occasional female around to smoke, kill some time?
Nah, man.
No?
We was quiet as church mice. We was just doing what you all wanted. Man, y'all must have fucked up.
Shit, good, probably. Always. But you fuck up.
He made an example out of this boy to let the other farmhands know they're also disposable. Wanda is an example of a greedy farmhand, and when she steps out of line, the only thing that saved her life was Leon. However, in season 4, we see that he is running out of farmhands. Lerp, who he hired for security, quits and tells Franklin that he values his morals more than the money. To put things in perspective, Lerp was active duty in the Vietnam War and said that working for Franklin was more taxing than war due to all of the bloodshed.
As far as I go, I thought I could handle this. I told myself the money was worth it, but I wasn't prepared for all the bloodshed. I mean, war overseas is one thing, but our people killing each other in our streets, man, you gotta draw a line somewhere.
This sentiment is similar to that of Louis, Jerome, and Leon as well. Not only is he losing access to new farmhands, but his oldest and most trusted farmhands are threatening to leave. This is inconceivable to Franklin because he's lost his own morals. To a certain extent, I feel like Franklin enjoys having relationships with dependent people. because it allows him to maintain control. When Franklin was just starting out selling coke, when he went to jail, when he had to start using his cane, all of these are things that made him more dependent and to a certain extent caused him to overcorrect severely in order to remain dominant. Franklin's character development is phenomenal, and Damson Idris's acting is great, but y'all, I hate Franklin. He's arrogant, standoffish, and just a bad guy. Leon, Jerome, and the other main characters at least have redeeming qualities, and I really can't think of that many for Franklin. I hate Franklin, but for all the right reasons. And even so, there's one thing about Franklin that I really love, and that's his ability to prove other people wrong. Throughout the first and second seasons, people constantly tell Franklin that he should give up.
You ain't built for this shit, Saint.
People especially thought he was too weak when he began using his cane. Franklin mentions to Reed that being a black man in America is a constant state of paranoia.
Come on, you're being a little bit paranoid.
I'm a black man in America, goddammit. Hell yeah, I'm paranoid. You know, people of your complexion don't exactly have the best record when it comes to dealing with people like me. And when it comes down to it, white people be afraid of blacks. But it should be the other way around. Mr. Kidnapper.
And considering Franklin's circumstances and background, it could have severely limited his success. But instead, Franklin made his own success. Franklin consistently proved people wrong and showed them that this is exactly what he was built for.